Hey, Mama, let me tell you what I don't do in my homeschool. Because after 11 years of homeschooling, I've learned that skipping some things is exactly what makes our homeschool thrive. And a quick disclaimer before I begin, just because I choose not to do certain things in my homeschool doesn't mean that I think everyone should avoid them. I'm sharing this list simply to show you that you have the freedom to create a homeschool that fits your unique family. Be sure to check with your state to see the homeschool laws and to understand what's required. But beyond that, know that you can design a homeschool schedule, setting, and structure that reflect your core values and your beliefs about learning. So let's jump into that list. Number one, in my homeschool, I don't recreate public school at home. Now, I'm a former public school teacher. Our two older daughters were in the public school system for a while, and we know what public school does and what they don't do. And so we know what worked for us and what didn't. And so we homeschool for a reason, and it's not to copy that public school system, but it's to do what works best for our family. It gives us the freedom and flexibility to step out of that model and to step into what will work. So we don't do a rigid 8 to 3 schedule. We don't do classroom style desk. We don't stress about the state standards and staying on track or staying on schedule with doing certain things the way that a public school would. Instead, we emphasize flexibility and real life learning. We emphasize progress and mastery. Number two, in my homeschool, I don't grade every assignment. We focus on mastery and we don't worry so much about completing units and chapters and moving forward just because we've done this and it's time to move on. But instead, I use observation, I use discussion, I use material that has been completed to measure progress and to see where my children are. I do use tests, but I don't use a ton of tests all the time. And I don't grade every single thing that they do, but I'm constantly assessing and monitoring where they are. Are we ready to take the test? Are we ready to move on to the next lesson? And if they demonstrate mastery for me, then we move on. If they don't, then we erase the problem or we print out another paper or we reteach it in a different way so that my children understand and they can move on with a firm foundation of one skill to the next, to the next. Number three, in my homeschool, I don't stick to a curriculum just because we started it. Now, in the homeschool world, there's a lot of talk about curricula, and we research it, we watch videos on it, we ask our friends, we do what the co-op is doing, we do what works for another child. But sometimes we come to a point where we just have to stop. We have to admit, this isn't working for this kid right now. And so we may have to pivot. We may have to adjust something. We may have to do this part out loud instead of paper and pencil, or we may have to skip this part or this chapter. We may have to replace it with something else because it doesn't fit our child's needs. We may have to add in other things like hands-on activities or videos or field trips to make it more meaty or to make it more interesting. Remember that curriculum is a tool that helps us. It is not our boss. And so unless you're required by your state to do a certain type of curriculum, you have the freedom to choose. And one year, math curriculum worked great for our first grader. And then the next year, we started that same curriculum and we were working through math and we got a few chapters in and it didn't work. And so first quarter in second grade, we stopped using that and we switched it out for a more hands-on curriculum by the same company. And we used that for a little bit and it seemed to be okay. And then we got to another chapter where it didn't work anymore. And so I printed out some stuff off the internet and I supplemented. And then I switched a fourth time that year to a completely different curriculum that a friend recommended and I had researched and listened to a podcast about it. And so we did 4 different things that one year. And you know what? It wasn't the way that I would have planned it and wanted it. And yeah, I spent some money on that and that was a hard thing to swallow. But in the end, what good is it to keep making my child do something that is not helping her? And if she's miserable and if she's not learning and she's not feeling successful, why would I continue? Especially in the second grade. I'm going to set her up to hate math for the rest of her life if I keep pushing too hard. Now, sometimes we have to push our kids. Sometimes we just have to encourage them to stick with it and finish it out. But sometimes it's just not the right fit. And we have the freedom to stop and to pivot. I was coaching this young mom one time and she was homeschooling her first child and this kindergarten year. And she was with a co-op and they dictated the curriculum and they were using this curriculum. And she said, my daughter's just not doing what everybody else is doing. And I just feel like a failure and I don't know what to do. And she was falling apart over this. And so I asked her to tell me not about curriculum, but just about the skills. What skills does your child have and what skills does your child lack? And as we discussed it, we discovered together that her child was doing fine. It was just the curriculum that wasn't working for the child. It was a pace that didn't fit her, that didn't suit her. It was a style that wasn't best for her, but that the child was learning and she was smart and she was capable and she was making progress. So in our homeschool, we don't stick to a curriculum just because we started it. Number 4, I don't stress over falling behind. In homeschool, there is no such thing as behind because you're on your own path. As long as my children are making progress, I'm not worried. If they don't catch on to the skill this year, maybe they're not mature enough. Maybe they'll catch on to it next year. Maybe they needed a little bit more time to understand something. Maybe this particular skill and this thing is harder for them than something else that may be easy for them. So I don't worry about being behind, and I don't worry about being ahead either. If they're not making progress, though, I do check the curriculum, I do check my teaching methods, and I adjust and I shift until I find a solution. But I don't worry about their pace compared to other people's. As long as they're making progress, you're doing just fine. Number 5, in my homeschool, I don't insist that we do all of the schoolwork at a desk or a table. Now, I already said that we don't sit at school-style desks, but a lot of homeschool families sit at the kitchen table, and there's nothing wrong with that. We do. We typically do math at the kitchen table. It just makes sense. You've got the manipulatives, you've got the paper, the pencil, you need the space. It works out great. But the other things don't always happen at the table. My kids tend to be more motivated to learn when they're comfortable. So if that means we're sprawled out on a picnic blanket in the backyard, or we're sitting on the porch swing, or we're discussing something as we're riding in the car, or we're curled up on the couch reading a book together, that is the way that they're learning, and I'm okay with that. Now, I don't want my kids laying in their pajamas in their beds all day, but I do not think that we have to sit at the table all day long to learn. Life skills can be taught almost anywhere, anytime. Science happens in the kitchen and in the backyard, and social studies happens, like I said, in those discussions in the car and in the grocery store, at church, as we talk about laws and government and politics and current events and history and social skills. We're reading all the time for authentic purposes while we're riding down the road and in the grocery store and at church, when we're reading the lyrics off the screen, or when we're reading the Bible, or when we're on the phone or the computer or the TV, there are words that pop up, or we're typing, we're texting, we're reading and we're writing for authentic purposes. And writing, we text, we type emails, we write letters to friends, we write grocery lists, we write birthday invitations and birthday guest lists and thank you cards and signs for our bedroom doors that say, girls only, keep out, or I'm mad, stay away. And we even write during playtime. They'll write to take your order or create a menu. There's all sorts of authentic writing that takes place not at my kitchen table. And read alouds. I love to read aloud to my kids, no matter how old they are, and we read aloud quite a bit. Independent reading time happens as well, on the bed, on the couch, on the front porch, on a blanket outside, sometimes even in the car. We're listening to an audiobook, we're reading aloud to one another, we're enjoying a book as we ride along. So learning can take place anywhere. Number 6, I don't teach skills in isolation. What I've found from years of teaching my children and other people's children is that if they can connect new information to old information, they have a better chance of remembering it, understanding it, and applying it. If they learn skills in isolation, they tend to memorize it for the test and for the moment, but it doesn't really stick with them long term. And they don't know how to use that skill outside of a school workbook setting. So let me explain. When my kids are learning something new and they're connecting it to something real, like telling time, and they see the clock on the wall and they're like, oh, it's time for this. Oh, it's this time. Then all of a sudden it becomes real to them. It's not just, this is what I'm doing in my math book, but it becomes a skill that's necessary for life. We know at this time we're going to leave the house and go here. We know at this time when the clock looks like this is going to happen. And so math is not just about memorizing facts, but it's about counting your birthday money or calculating how much interest your savings account is earning for you. History is not just a bunch of boring events on a timeline, but it's connecting books and movies that the kids enjoy to that timeline, and it makes it a lot more meaningful and exciting. And in real life, subjects overlap. So math shows up in cooking, and reading shows up in science, and writing shows up in history. Look, teaching skills authentically in a group like this is more beneficial. I can cover a lot more skills when they're woven together. For example, I can do one unit that covers reading, writing, history in a project or a unit study. And speaking of unit studies, man, that is my favorite way to teach because it saves time, it reduces burnout for me and for my kids. Number 7, in my homeschool, I don't teach every subject every day. What I've learned is that my children don't learn more because they sat at the table lots of hours, but they learn more when they can learn it in bite-sized chunks. So in our homeschool, we rotate and integrate instead of overloading. So we may do a week of science and then a week of social studies, or a science-related unit study and then a social studies-related unit study. That might be 1 week on, 1 week off, or it might be one semester and then the other. Every day we try to do some kind of reading, but we don't always do writing, spelling, and grammar every day. And we try to do math almost every day, but sometimes we just don't get to it. And that's okay because math is integrated into other things that we do. Reading is integrated into almost everything we do. And so I don't worry if we haven't gotten to a specific book or a structured lesson in every subject every day. Number 8, I don't assign busy work in my homeschool. Now, in public school, I know that from being a teacher and from being a substitute, you have to keep the kids busy to keep them on track. But in my homeschool, every assignment has a purpose, or we skip it. I don't need to keep my children busy. They have plenty of things to do. They can play, they can read, they can do chores, they can do music or dance classes, they can be a participant in co-op or a club or a field trip, they can create, they can build. So I don't need to fill every single minute. My kids actually need some downtime and they need to learn what to do when they're bored. So in my homeschool, I don't assign busy work. Number 9, in my homeschool, I don't follow the traditional school calendar. Now, my first year homeschooling, we totally followed the local school district's calendar. Every day that they were in session, we were in session, and every day that they were off, we were off. And we were very connected to our public school friends and family still, and that worked for us in that season. But as we've progressed in our homeschool journey, we've made more homeschool friends, and we've learned what works best for our kids. We've created a modified year-round schedule that we're using right now. So my kids do schoolwork 2 days in the summer and 4 days during the school year, and we take several weeks off for family vacations. This allows my children to have continuity in their learning, and I've found that they make better progress this way. And it also allows for us to take vacations in May and September, where the beaches and vacation spots are cheaper and less crowded. So this is why we don't follow the traditional school calendar. Number 10, in my homeschool, I don't ignore my kids' interest. I let them explore their passions and I encourage them to have curiosity because it leads to deeper and more authentic learning than textbooks alone. When we follow their passions and we follow their interests, we can still learn the same skills, but we do it in a way that they're more engaged and more excited. And their passion, basically, it leads to the best learning moments. This also allows them to explore their own interests, and it helps to cultivate the skills that they need to become who God has made them to be. Thanks for watching my video. Please drop a comment below and let me know one thing that you don't do in your homeschool. And if you want help creating a homeschool that fits your family and your unique values, then check out my program, Coach in Your Pocket. You don't have to figure this out alone. You can get personalized guidance, practical ideas, and encouragement from someone who has been there. Information about my Coach in Your Pocket program is in the description link below. Happy homeschooling!